Fluorescent lights flickered ominously overhead as James made his way down the deserted hospital corridor. The squeaking of his shoes on the polished linoleum floor echoed in the eerie silence. He'd only been working the night shift at Evergreen General for a few weeks, but something about tonight felt different. The air seemed heavier, charged with an inexplicable tension that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. As he rounded the corner towards the nurse's station, a chill ran down James's spine. The lights in the adjacent hallway were out, plunging that section of the hospital into impenetrable darkness. "Hello?" he called out hesitantly. "Is anyone there?" His voice sounded small and feeble in the vast emptiness. No response came, save for the faint hum of distant machinery. Steeling himself, James fumbled for the flashlight on his belt. With trembling hands, he flicked it on and pointed the beam into the darkened hallway. The weak light barely penetrated the gloom. As he swept the flashlight back and forth, something caught his eye. A flicker of movement at the far end of the corridor. James froze, heart pounding in his chest. "Is someone there?" he called again, voice cracking. The response came not in words, but in a low, guttural growl that echoed off the walls. It was a sound no human throat could produce. James felt his blood turn to ice as the growl grew louder, closer. Panic overtook him. James turned and ran, his footsteps thundering in the empty corridor. Behind him, he could hear something giving chase, its movements unnaturally fast and fluid. He burst through a set of double doors, finding himself in the hospital's central atrium. The vast, circular space was dimly lit by emergency lighting, casting long shadows across the floor. James's eyes darted frantically around the room, searching for an escape route. 4 corridors branched off from the atrium like spokes on a wheel. Which way should he go? A crash behind him made the decision for him. Without looking back, James sprinted down the nearest hallway, praying it would lead to safety. The sound of pursuit grew louder, spurring him on. He rounded a corner and skidded to a halt. A dead end. James spun around, back pressed against the wall, as the creature emerged from the shadows. In the dim light, he could finally see his pursuer clearly. It was like nothing he'd ever seen before. A massive, amorphous body pulsed and writhed, its surface a sickly yellow. Dozens of eyes blinked at him from all over its form, a gaping maw lined with razor-sharp teeth opened wide. James let out a scream of pure terror as the creature lunged forward. He ducked and rolled, narrowly avoiding its snapping jaws. In a burst of desperate energy, he scrambled to his feet and ran back the way he'd come. His mind raced as he fled. What was that thing? How had it gotten into the hospital? And most pressingly, how could he escape it? James knew he couldn't outrun the creature forever. As he burst back into the central atrium, a new sound caught his attention. A high-pitched, electronic beeping coming from one of the other corridors. It was familiar somehow, important. Without fully understanding why, James found himself drawn towards the sound. He sprinted down the corridor, the beeping growing louder with each step. Behind him, he could hear the creature's growls of frustration. He emerged into a small room filled with blinking, beeping medical equipment. In the center stood a large machine he'd never seen before. It pulsed with an otherworldly energy, emitting that strange, insistent beeping. James approached the machine cautiously. Its surface was covered in intricate patterns and symbols he didn't recognize. As he drew closer, the beeping intensified, becoming almost frantic. A crash from the hallway reminded him of the imminent danger. The creature was getting closer. With no other options, James placed his hand on the machine's surface. A jolt of energy surged through him. Images flooded his mind, a vast, empty void, countless worlds teeming with life, and creatures, no, entities, of unimaginable power, playing a cosmic game with the fate of universes as their board. In an instant, James understood. The creature pursuing him, the hospital, even his own existence, all were part of some grand interdimensional conflict he could barely comprehend. The knowledge burned through him like fire. He was no longer just James, night nurse at Evergreen General. He was a player in this cosmic game, imbued with power he didn't yet understand. As the creature burst into the room, James turned to face it. No longer did he see a mindless monster, but a pawn, like himself in this grand celestial match. He raised his hand, feeling energy crackle at his fingertips. "This isn't your true form," James said, his voice resonating with newfound authority. "Show yourself, player." The creature hesitated, its amorphous body rippling with uncertainty. Slowly, the monstrous form began to melt away. In its place stood a being of pure energy, vaguely humanoid in shape. It regarded James with a mixture of surprise and grudging respect. "You've awakened," the entity said, its voice echoing in James's mind rather than his ears. "Earlier than expected. The game changes." With those cryptic words, it vanished in a flash of light. James stood alone in the room, his mind reeling from the encounter. The hospital around him seemed less real now, its walls transparent, revealing the vast cosmic chessboard beyond. He knew this was only the beginning. The game was afoot, and he was now a key player. Other awakened beings would be out there, some allies, others adversaries. The fate of realities hung in the balance. With a deep breath, James stepped forward. The hospital melted away entirely, leaving him suspended in the vast cosmic void. His first move in this celestial game awaited. The chase had only just begun.